It's no secret that motorcycle manufacturers need to recycle parts, design features, and even names when it comes to producing quote-unquote new models. And let's face it, if every single bike was entirely new from top to bottom, we'd only get a new model every 10 years and they'd have to cost $1 million each to supplement the necessary R&D. The Ducati Monster was by all means a parts bin special, but it became a class-defining motorcycle that allowed Ducati to ford some treacherous financial straits. Recycling certain elements is definitely necessary to keep prices low and manufacturing streamlined, but some bikes are so recycled they leave you feeling a little underwhelmed, even if you can't pinpoint exactly why. So let's discuss 5 new bikes that are coming out that are heavily reliant on existing platforms. The first one on the list we have is the Kawasaki Eliminator. Pretty much every aspect of this bike has been recycled or repurposed, even starting from the name. Kawasaki used the Eliminator name several times in the past. Now that's not really unheard of. We've seen this done pretty much by every manufacturer. Triumph has recycled every name from Trident to the Daytona to the Rocket 3. Harley-Davidson's current Sportster S is a far cry from the air-cooled Evo Sportsters that came before, and even Kawi themselves have repurposed model names before. The Ninja H2 harkens back to the H2 Mach 4 from the 70s. It's the first one that came to my mind. The first Kawasaki Eliminator was a muscle cruiser from 1985 that was built around the GP Z900R sport bike engine. As time went on, the name was attributed to various other models that used cross-platformed engines from other bikes in Kawasaki's lineup. There was a ZL1000 Eliminator, a ZL750, ZL600, and so on. The Eliminator 450 was reintroduced in 2023 and follows a similar formula, using the engine borrowed from the Ninja 500. It's not an outright recreation of the old Eliminators, but it's definitely attempting to bank on some of its existing name recognition. Mechanically, the Eliminator 450 is nearly a copy and paste job from the Ninja 500 platform. It uses the same engine, transmission, and core electronics. Even the frame is just a slightly modified version of the frame used on the Ninja and Z500 models. As for the rest of the components like brakes, wheels, and suspension, you can find them used across other entry-level bikes in Kawasaki's lineup. The Eliminator is essentially just a reskinned Ninja, tweaked ever so slightly to give it the cruiser look and feel. That's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. Kawasaki's playing it safe using a long-proven engine and chassis, and they used to do that with the Vulcan 650, and it keeps the cost low by repurposing a vast majority of the bike. But the new Eliminator definitely feels like an attempt to exploit the legacy of the name while not providing anything cool or exciting. It just ends up being one of those meh beginner bikes that are fine but nothing to write home about. Personally, I was really looking forward to seeing the Eliminator used for a motorcycle that cross-platformed the H2, seeing as Kawasaki has cross-platformed the H2 into a sport touring bike, a naked bike, and the fully fared almighty H2, but an H2 Eliminator would have been amazing and lived up to the true muscle bike of the past. Having it be a copy of a Ninja 500 is just kind of weak. Suzuki released the DR-Z400 in 2000, 25 years ago, and since it has never really been updated, new models from 2024 are still rocking a carb and a 5-speed gearbox just as they were back over 20 years ago. So when Suzuki surprised us all with the release of the DR-Z4S for 2025, I think it's fair to say most had really high hopes. I mean, 25 years is a long time to really gauge owner feedback and create the dual sport bike we all hoped for. On the surface, the new DR-Z4S looks like a wholly modern machine. It's got updated bodywork, LED lighting, and thankfully, fuel injection. But when you look more closely, you'll realize the new model is not all that dissimilar from the outgoing DR-Z in many ways. Suzuki claims it uses an entirely new engine and exhaust system, and while that is true, it is a new design with new cam profiles and intake. The core blueprints are very similar to the existing engine. It has the exact same 398cc displacement, identical bore and stroke, and a nearly identical compression ratio. The DR-Z4S has a slightly higher power output, with peak horsepower bumped to 38 ponies compared to 31 found on outgoing models. But truthfully, that's likely a result of improved fueling and the new cam profile. The new dual sport also let a lot of riders down because it still features a 5-speed gearbox, which makes sense because gearboxes are very closely mated to engines on motorcycles, and Suzuki, using an extremely derivative version of their 398cc motor, probably didn't want to develop a brand new gearbox for this bike, because the price is already kind of out of control at $9,000 for this thing. The 5-speed box has long been the Achilles heels of the long-running DR-Z, so it's kind of a kick in the nuts from Suzuki to not add a 6th gear on the new model. Supposedly, the gear ratios have been revised, which may alleviate some of the concerns, but until these bikes hit showrooms and riders are able to put them to the test, there is still to be determined. The DR-Z4S also has an updated frame and suspension, which is great, but at the end of the day, it still weighs 16 pounds more than the outgoing model. It has a bunch of new tech, including ride modes, adjustable TC, and switchable ABS, which is great, but a lot of riders can't help but feel that the new DR-Z was essentially updated so it could just meet Euro 5 emissions and be sold in Europe again, and then given a bunch of tech features to demand a higher MSRP. But the core elements that many riders would have rather seen get revamped and revitalized were just seemingly recycled from the previous model. I think I speak for many when I say that we wanted something with 6 speeds, much lower weight, and a much more approachable price point. And of course fuel injection, which they did do. So I guess credit where credit's due. Royal Enfield turned a new page when they released the Himalayan 450. It was their first liquid-cooled machine, and it felt like a package that could rival many of other similar displacement adventure bikes on the market. And it's a really great bike. It doesn't feel like a bike that needs to make any concessions. Unlike other bikes from Royal Enfield, you're not justifying older equipment or rudimentary designs for the sake of retro allure or affordability. Some of you air-cooled Royal Enfield apologists get a little crazy. So, as the Himalayan 450 and its new liquid-cooled Sherpa engine have been harbinger for the change of the brand, why in the hell does Royal Enfield keep releasing quote-unquote new 650 models? I mean, come on. We have the INT 650, the Continental GT, and then the Super Meteor 650, and the Shotgun 650, and now the Bear 650. What's next? The Twink 650? The Otter 650? Are we just gonna keep making gay jokes about this? Probably. Look, Royal Enfield and I have squashed the beef over the years. I am not about to sit here and say how slow and boring and cheap these bikes are. They're not. They're genuinely good. But what I am gonna do is go out there and say we probably don't need 5 different bikes that are so similar. 3 bikes would even be a stretch, but 5? Who do they think they are? Triumph? While the little air-cooled 650cc twin is lovable, it's definitely not a Bonneville, you know? And yet they are plopping it into just as many bikes as Triumph has in their modern classic lineup. I swear one of these is going to come up with the INT 650 unicycle at this point. The INT 650 one wheel. Let's see it, Royal Enfield. The INT 650 and the Continental GT are both styled in the vein of a retro roadster, while the Continental GT falls more on the cafe racer side of things. But do the minute styling changes warrant 2 distinct models? Not really sure. Then we have the Super Meteor and the Shotgun 650, both of which are styled as cruisers. I went on the launch for both of these bikes, and the Super Meteor has that more classic cruiser style, and the Shotgun's a little bit more modern and sporty. But really, they're just both cruisers and share the same engine and have relatively similar riding triangles with slight styling tweaks. I didn't think they were that different. And now we have the Bear 650, which is kind of a scrambler version of the INT 650. It's not to say that these bikes aren't neat in their own right, but we always hear Royal Enfield's releasing a new bike, and it's just an iteration of the 650 twin. I think people would be way more excited if they were to put the liquid-cooled 450 into something else, or expand on that tech and make a larger version of the Sherpa engine to live in a truly modern roadster. Come on, Royal Enfield, when are we gonna get a liquid-cooled INT 650 based on the Sherpa model with a parallel twin? I think that's what we all want.
We, of course, love Rockform for their rock-solid phone cases and motorcycle handlebar mounts, but they keep adding more and more new accessories that allow you to capitalize and expand on your existing setup. With a Rockform phone case in hand, you can attach it to a mount on your bike, on the dash of your car, and now even on a camera tripod. As more and more people get into motorcycle content creation, the Rockform tripod mount is a super convenient piece of kit. The 1/4-inch threads attached to any standard camera tripod, and the magnetic phone attachment allows you to super quickly attach your phone to get the perfect shot. The base of the mount is magnetic as well, so you can quickly slap the mount onto a metal surface, snap your phone onto the other side, and set up a shot without even having to use a tripod. Rockform has an astounding track record for high build quality and rugged durability, and this mount is no different. With a super strong magnet, especially paired with a Rockform case, you know your phone isn't going to budge. Rockform's been a long-time Yaminu partner, and their support is invaluable. If you enjoy your existing Rockform products and have an interest in using your phone for photography or video, click the link below and check out the tripod mount. Yaminu viewers get 25% discount as well if you use the code YN25. So hit that link in the description, use that code YN25 for 25% off. Thanks so much to Rockform for the support. Now let's get back to the show.
In 2007, Aprilia released the Shiver 750, and it was kind of an early adopter of the middle middleweight naked twin category, and honestly, it's a bike that might have come a little bit before its time. It uses a 750cc 90-degree V-twin that would ultimately share with the Dorsoduro 750 Supermoto bike, but the Shiver was your quintessential V-twin naked bike akin to the Ducati Monster or the SV650 of the day. And it was a relatively neat little sleeper hit. And it was really modern for the time too, being one of the first production bikes to use ride-by-wire throttle, coming in just behind a 2006 R6. In 2017, the Shiver was upgraded to the Shiver 900, where the increase in displacement bumped the power to 93 horsepower and 66 foot-pounds of torque. It was certainly punching above the SV650 by this point, but it was kind of outgunned by more contemporary middleweight triples like the MT-09 and Street Triple. Ultimately, it would be discontinued in 2020. Until now. The Shiver 900 has been resurrected through a partnership with the Piaggio and Chinese company Zongshen, which will be sold exclusively in China, for now anyway. While these Chinese manufacturing partnerships are probably not shocking to anyone anymore by now, the resurrection of the Shiver is definitely a little strange, mostly because it's literally just an identical version of the Shiver that was discontinued in Western markets 5 years ago with few frivolous value proposition mods like keyless ignition. It sort of reminds me of the all-new Buell Hammerhead, which is really just an EBR 1190, if we're being honest. So it's essentially a 2017 motorcycle sold as a premium bike in China now, while being more expensive than other Chinese naked bikes like the CF Moto 800NK, which I hear is pretty good. I've actually not ridden that bike yet. So I guess the Shiver 900 is less recycled as it is totally regurgitated. Aprilia is selling their leftover R&D scraps to Zongshen, where they can then capitalize it on the Chinese market. Not a bad business move. Get those things off the books. When it was rumored that Kawasaki was going to release the ZX-4 in 2023, a lot of American riders thought it to be an unlikely addition to the sport bike category. The small displacement, high revving 4-cylinder aimed to provide an incredibly novel and exhilarating riding experience, where riders could experience the top-end rush of a true super sport while staying within relatively realistic speeds. When it was released a few years ago, it seemed like a stark contrast to the current archetypes and expectations for modern bikes. Torque-forward twins and both comfortable naked bikes and the not-so-super sports seem to be the prevailing framework for many of the bikes we see today. A small displacement, high-revving 4-cylinder that makes little to no torque seemed completely out of left field when it was released in 2023. But the ZX-4 is not Kawasaki's first foray into the world of small displacement 4-cylinder bikes. From 1989 until 2003, the ZX-4RR was quite popular in Japan and Europe. The 398cc inline-4 engine was capable of producing 64 ponies at 13,000 RPM. Small displacement inline-4 motorcycles were super popular in the 80s and 90s, and the modern ZX-4R is just a modern reimagining of that same idea. Additionally, ZX-4R was preceded by the ZX-25R, an even tinier inline-4 sold by Kawasaki in varying Asian markets since 2020, and really the ZX-4 is just a bigger version of that bike. The ZX-25R is in itself the modern version of the ZX-R250, which was sold alongside the ZX-R400 from the late 80s to the early 2000s. So, while the ZX-4R sold today might seem like a drastic departure from the standard slew of contemporary motorcycles, it's very much built around a design Kawasaki polished over the course of 20-some years in the 80s and 90s. I mean, it really feels like we're just coming full circle on these bikes nowadays. But thank you guys so much for making it all the way to the end. You're in the elite tier of Yami Noob enjoyers. You're special, you truly are. If you want more Yami Noob content, head over to yaminoob.co to learn about becoming a member, joining up on our Discord server. You'll get automatic entries into our bike giveaways, access to the community, and get sent our weekly newsletter, which is chock full of industry news, plus memes and jokes and all sorts of fun stuff. Either way, thanks a ton for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll catch you on the next one. Fact: bananas are berries, but strawberries aren't. Goodbye.
All right, everybody, this video is over. There's no more to watch on this beautiful video between me and you, but this Triumph Street Triple 765RS is available on yaminoob.co as a giveaway bike. Hit that link while you're waiting for the next video to load, become a member. It'll take you as easy as 1, 2, 3, and then you're signed up to win. How cool is that? Papa Yam's giving away 54 bikes. You could be the next one.